I hope you've enjoyed Night Gardener as much as I've enjoyed sharing it with you. I've read this story. This is probably my second or maybe my third year to share it, and each year it honestly gets better and better. There's more to hear, there's more to catch, and definitely a book to read over and over, even on your own without me. So here's the author's note, because I think his motivation is really interesting. Writing this story was a story in and of itself. 9 years and countless drafts stand between the original idea and the book we hold right now. Did you catch that? 9 years and several drafts. Some of you fuss at me when I ask you to write a second draft or I ask you to revise it. 9 years and several drafts. That's crazy. The first and greatest inspiration for this book was Something Wicked This Way Comes by Ray Bradbury. My father read this book aloud to me when I was 11 years old, and it scared me silly. Indeed, it was during a Something Wicked inspired nightmare that I caught my first glimpse of the Night Gardener. So did you catch that? He took the Night Gardener and turned it into a character because he'd had a dream about him after reading Ray Bradbury's scary book. And honestly, I have not read the Ray Bradbury book, nor will I, because you know me, I'm not a scary story person. This is about as scary as I can go. But that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool to take something from one of your dreams, or in this case, a nightmare. Way to make it into something. I have since always imagined that the gardener's haunting visage lurked just beneath the surface of Mr. GM's dark smile. Another crucial work was the sketchbook of Geoffrey Crayon, Gent, by Washington Irving. This book long ago taught me the rare pleasure of stories that contain both horror and humor. And I know a lot of you like that, horror and humor. It includes many famous episodes, chief among them being The Legend of Sleepy Hollow and Rip Van Winkle. At some point while writing The Night Gardener, I became lost in the gloom of the Windsor's plight, and in desperation I went back to Irving. It was there I rediscovered a character I had all but forgotten, the roving story collector Geoffrey Crayon. Behind every tale hides Irving's kind, mysterious storyteller who guides readers safely through the darkest valleys. It was while reading this character that I first heard the voice of Hester Kettle, asking an important question about the difference between a story and a lie. Think about that when you've heard people, are you telling me a story? What's the difference between a story and a lie? That would have been a great Think About It Thursday. It might be a Think About It Thursday on a flip grid, we'll see. 2 other favorite works helped me better understand Molly and Kip. The first was The Secret Garden, and I know some of you have read that. The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett, whose characters are seeded into every page. And an even greater inspiration was Courage by J.M. Barrie. Courage is not a book, but a speech delivered to the students of the University of St. Andrews in 1922. So 2 or 3 books, other authors, and a speech that he heard all inspired him to create Night Gardener and put it all together. So when Molly and Kip mentioned the ships that they traveled on, that really happened in history. People would get on those ships trying to escape Ireland, trying to get to a better way of life, better, safer place. And it says 1 in 5 people who boarded a ship bound for America died at sea from disease or starvation, which led these vessels being called coffin ships. These were not the only dangers. In 1850 alone, over a dozen ships were destroyed in storms that tore through the Atlantic Ocean and the Irish Sea. Those who did manage to reach their destination, like Molly and Kip, were often greeted with derision and scorn. So even once they got to someplace safe, the people didn't necessarily accept them or help them. So they had to fight and struggle to make it. While Ireland continued to suffer in the 1850s, England began to enjoy remarkable prosperity. The expansion of empire, development of the middle class, the spread of industrialization created tremendous wealth in the Victorian era. There were, of course, though, many people left behind. Poverty among the lowest classes was devastating, especially in the cities, which were overrun with beggars. Even those in the middle class were not safe. More than a few men, like Bertrand Windsor, found themselves in debtor's prison or worse. The Victorian era was perhaps the last point in Western history when magic and science were allowed to coexist. There was a great fascination then with magic, spirits, and fairy stories. One can only imagine what Dr. Crouch would have thought of all of this. And it was learning about these early ghost hunters as a boy that I first developed a desire to tell a ghost story of my own. Beyond these sources, I have been helped in much more tangible ways by numerous friends and colleagues, and to these people I say thank you. Your support is more than I could wish for. And Jonathan Auxier teaches creative writing and children's literature, and he's the author of Peter Nimble and His Fantastic Eyes, which I can't read aloud. I started it and I had to stop because it scared me too much. And Sophie Query and The Last Story Guard, which I wish I could read that because I love his storytelling characters, but I just haven't been able to yet. And the author lives in Pittsburgh with his family, and you can find him online. He has a website and all of that. So there you have it. His inspiration, the authors that he read from. Readers become writers, writers are readers. They just have to go together like peanut butter and chocolate. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Those of you who like horror and humor, maybe you'll read the next books and let me know what happens. Talk to you soon.